Hello everybody, I think we've now all come into the room, so we're ready to begin. First of all, thank you for joining us this morning to one of the events that we're running as a series of events as part of Leeds Digital Festival. This one is all about building a tech business and going from a concept to a global SaaS provider. My name is Martin Jones, I'm one of the directors at Fruition Consulting. Just a quick overview of Fruition Consulting. So we are a technology consultancy. We launched 18 months ago, so we're very much kind of in, I suppose, startup/scale-up mode ourselves. We use the heritage of our sister company, Fruition IT, as a springboard to kind of launch this technology consultancy. And today we stand at having 90 consultants deployed across 20 projects across 5 organisations. I'm not sure about anyone else. It's been a funny old 18 months, and perhaps timing wasn't quite with us in terms of starting up that new organisation at that point. But really, what we've seen in the technology sector over the past probably 12 months has been kind of huge growth and lots of super exciting organizations with lots of super exciting projects. One of the organizations that we started working with at the start of this year is the GDS Group. And we had one of our senior associates, who we'll hear from shortly, who was kind of very much supporting at the very start of that engagement. That engagement has grown as their kind of new business and product has grown. And that's who I'm about to hand over to and introduce you to as well. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you do have any questions about any of the content along the way, please pop them in the chat box. We'll try our best to kind of answer them as they come up. If there's any we don't get round to, then we will follow up with everybody afterwards. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Mr. Dan Whiteley, who is the CTO at GDS Group and also a senior associate at Fruition Consulting. Over to you, Dan.
Thanks, Martin. Morning, everyone. My name's Dan. Very nice to virtually meet you. And I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking to you a little bit about what we're doing at GDS and specifically with our new technology business. So hence the title, Building a Technology Business. I'm going to attempt to screen share now with PowerPoint. So this is kind of where it's all going to hopefully work for me. So bear with me a second. And Gemma, you're going to tell me if I've got it wrong or not. So, right, can everyone see that screen? I'm going to assume silence is golden, so it's a yes.
I think we need to go full screen, Dan.
Oh, full screen. Now I've got to find out where to do that on PowerPoint. Gosh.
Dan, just swap them around like you did last time.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
That way. Is that better?
All good.
Is that full screen? Okay, awesome. So that's the first technical challenge. So my name is Dan Whiteley. I'm the CTO at GDS Group. A little bit about me. I'm a technology leader with over 20 years hands-on experience in delivering IT transformation. I've spent my time doing a lot of digitization and building and delivering complex technology solutions and products. I've spent many years in the financial services sector. More recently moved into sports betting and now in digital communications. And I kind of have fallen into specific areas of expertise around solving challenges around how you scale up, how you deliver immersive customer experiences, and then from a technical side, it's like how do you build out high-performing, low-latency platforms. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to just first of all talk to you a little bit, well, show you a sizzle reel about what GDS does so you can kind of understand what the organization does, how that kind of then can manifest in a SaaS scenario, and then some of the challenges around how do you actually take, from a nothing, a concept element to actually building something. So I'm just going to play a short video. So GDS Group basically provide digital virtual events, and they're very immersive, and the business has had phenomenal growth prior to the pandemic and through the pandemic. So been a huge success and a very exciting business to work for. So this video is going to kind of just frame a little bit around what GDS do today.
This is the coolest virtual event that I have participated in.
The GDS Summit definitely streamlined our sales cycle by at least 50%.
Welcome to The New, where we deliver all your event objectives in a digital-first world.
So that's a little bit about GDS. Obvious question is, why are GDS not hosting Leeds Digital Festival? Simply not enough notice period given, but maybe perhaps next year. So what are we building? So this is really extending where GDS have come in terms of their life cycle, going from, I guess, physical events through to kind of digital virtual events, but they're still using basically TV production grade studios, whilst they're kind of dialing the audience in using things like Zoom or Teams. What we're building is the kind of the SaaS version of that. So we're building out a next generation SaaS virtual reality communication platform. And the idea is, it's a bit of a mouthful, is to facilitate effective, inclusive and immersive worldwide human communication. How we're doing that, we're using some really clever technology, and the smarts comes in terms of how we put that technology together. And this is where we're seeing some of the interesting challenges around how do you blend enterprise grade business technology, you know, Java, React, those kind of things. And then how do you bring in game technology such as the Unreal Engine? And it's the bringing together those two technology platforms, which is going to allow us to deliver our SaaS platform, but also is allowing us to kind of innovate and explore kind of the edges of what we can do with those technologies. But it's all about delivering an immersive customer experience. So if you're not familiar with Unreal, I'll play a little bit around the latest Unreal Engine, and it will just again bring to life the types of things that we're looking to do. Obviously, it'll be more in a business environment as opposed to gamified, but it will give you an overview of what Unreal can do.
It might be. So that's a short sizzle reel to some of the capabilities of the Unreal Engine, and that's what we're going to take advantage of with our core SaaS platform. That demo was looking at things like Lumens, which is around advanced lighting simulations, Nanites, which is the particle simulation, so with those little bugs responding to a light source, and then Niagara, and then the crucial thing is around Nanites, which is the removes the kind of the polygon challenge in producing very sort of photorealistic graphics in real time. So that allows us to create virtual stages, virtual worlds, virtual events that are then incredibly immersive. So comes to the question, and that's a bit of framing, how do you then create a brilliant tech business? And I think I've tried to, I have a fairly simple mindset around how I think about things. So I looked at cake. I like cake, and a Victoria sponge is a nice cake.
pretty simple cake, as I understand. I'm not a baker, but there's a huge amount of variables involved in terms of the quality of the ingredients, the ratio, the mixing, the timing, the temperatures, etc. And I think, in terms of how those things then blend into how do you build a tech business, I think some of those elements perhaps ring true. So for me, I wanted to talk about you guys around how you prove the concept, how do you build a team, how do you choose the right technology, how do you anticipate the challenges, and ultimately how do you get to an MVP. So sounds fairly straightforward, but quite complex. So the first piece I wanted to kind of just discuss was around how do you prove the concept. So we've got some technical and business ambitions. We said we want to use Unreal, we want to blend it with business technology. Sounds easy enough on the PowerPoint and the pitch, but actually how do you kind of bring some of that to life, and how do you kind of test that? So I think firstly, it's really important to just really kind of understand the area that you're trying to solve, and therefore understand the problem and the problems. From a technical point of view, these could be numerous. From a business point of view, these could be numerous. So how do you understand that, and how do you start to see a way through that? I think the other big piece that needs to understand in terms of how you prove the concept is around understanding where the risks lie, but also make some educated bets and experiment. And the key thing here is to explore and fail fast. So right now, I've got a team who are kind of working through how do they leverage some of the technology I've talked to you about. How do they use the Unreal environment? How do we get inline video real time into that Unreal environment? How do we blend that with traditional sort of enterprise grade web technology? And these are just some of the things that we're exploring and testing. But it's crucial that you kind of have to prove some of the technical hypotheses. And do they work? And do they work kind of in the lab setting is one thing. The next big thing is how do those same solutions that you put in, how do they work at scale? So that's really around how an approach to kind of thinking about how you kind of understand the concept. The next part of the ingredient of building this tech business is all about building the team. I would say probably the most important part. If you haven't got good people, we haven't got a hope in hell's chance. If you've got really, really good engineers, life is a lot easier. But how do you kind of attract that talent? And again, there's no secret ingredient for this, but through my years of experience, I think these are the 6 things to kind of consider and really kind of build on. So I think it's crucial in a candidate market and a very competitive technology market that you have an attractive talent proposition. I think candidates have plenty of choice, and if you want the best of the best, you need to be able to attract them. It's very important that you understand the market. I had choices where I could set this business up. I could set it up anywhere in the world. I chose Leeds, not primarily because I live in the area, but I also understand the market. I know who's who. I know which companies are where, and I know it's a really, really great area to build a business out from. I think the other point is really around how do you then source top talent, and I think again that's where working with Fruition has really helped in terms of that partner relationship, where those guys have got the networks, they understand who's who, who's where, and that's enabled us to start to build out our Scrum teams. Another key part of how do you build the team is obviously having great technology. Linking back to the proposition, our approach to market is come and work with game technology, come and work with the latest web technology, come and build amazing things on AWS serverless. That's quite compelling compared to come and work on our large corporate enterprise legacy technology. And we're seeing that in the market, that the engineers and the technologists are responding in a positive way to that. The other big piece of me is around bringing people together. I know obviously we've had a lot of remote working during the pandemic, and I think we're starting to see a little bit of a switch back. One of the things I wanted to do was to make sure that we had a fantastic tech hub to work in. So when people come back into the office, it's a great place to kind of collaborate, innovate, and explore.
And whilst we'll operate a flex way of working, I think for where we're at in our life cycle, which is going from concept to MVP to kind of our first version of our product and then to iterate and beyond, it's crucial that we bring talented people together so that we can innovate fast, we can fail fast, but also so we can build a fantastic culture and team mentality. And then I think the final piece here, again, is that you're backed by a strong business model. So GDS Group is a phenomenal organization. It's the parent group that's investing and sponsoring in the SaaS platform. And the SaaS platform is going to meet the demands of the market. And this market is significant. You know, everything has changed since the pandemic. And this is an opportunity that we are going to be taking advantage of. So those are just some points around building the team. It isn't a simple case of getting the best people. It's about creating an environment that they can excel in. So outside of the people comes the next big one, is around technology, and which technology do you pick? There is a plethora of technology out there, and I think for the uninitiated it could be a confusing landscape. I've always been a big fan of picking technology which is established. I'm not a huge fan of what I would consider to be fashionable tech. I've been around in IT for far too long to see stuff be the latest tech and then for it to kind of fall away. So we want to look at what is established technology, and there's numerous reasons why we want established technology, but we need to be building our foundations correctly, and we need to be able to access the right talent pools for that technology, and we need to know that technology is proven in an enterprise setting. Again, when it's coming to choosing that technology, it's about making informed choices. So understanding all of the tooling, of the frameworks, what is out there, what is the data that supports it, who's using what, and you know, is it secure, is it scalable, etc. So understanding the intricacies of the technology being chosen and therefore applied and built into your product. The other big piece that sometimes seems to get forgotten about is around the available talent. So it's great that you could pick, I don't know, variants of Go or what have you, but you know, or even Kotlin when it was starting to come out about. But where is that talent? You know, what are the talent pools look like? For example, Unreal developers are really, really hard to find. So what are the options around there? Do we take people who are established in C++ and cross-train? These are some of the things we need to kind of consider is around, whilst technology is hugely important, it's like you need talented people to make it work. And above all, the technology choices being made today will invariably become a core part of the product. So you need to lay your foundations correctly. They need to be strong and they need to be robust. Whilst the theory will be you can throw your POCs away, you can start again in product world, easier said than done. So the technology put in today is likely to be in for tomorrow. So it's crucial that you get the technology correct. The next big thing is around anticipating the challenges. So I've got this obviously Indiana Jones from Raiders of the Lost Ark, a brilliant movie. I think this, if I remember rightly, is kind of part of the opening scene where Indy's gone into the cave and he's about to get the gold idol, and he's planned everything. He spotted all the booby traps, etc. And he's weighing up his bag of sand to replace the idol. And it's when he takes that idol, he thinks job done, but actually then a whole load of unfortunate events happening, including that famous boulder scene. So when I think about how you anticipate challenges, ultimately it's about a little bit of forward sight. So plan your roadmap. You need to understand your roadmap. There's the short-term view of the roadmap, and then there's kind of the midterm. Understand where the risk lies. So smooth the risk, don't back end it. So time and time again, I've seen organizations kind of back end risk or pick the easier stuff and not really tackle the kind of more challenging areas. So I'm all about how you smooth that and bring some of those areas together. So back to that kind of prove the concept. How do we prove some of those technical hypotheses? Because if we can't prove them, we can't get it right, or we can't scale them, those are big problems for us. So we need to make sure that we bring those items forward. It's important to test uncertainty because that's the only way you're going to get to certainty. So again, it's a balance of how you manage your risk and then testing those bits of the unknowns. And it's a learning process. So you only know what you know. So we want to constantly kind of prove our theories, prove our hypotheses, prove our assumptions, and test that uncertainty. And then there's a fine balance around building for the future. So whilst I'm a big fan of putting in strong foundations, we can't anticipate everything in the future. So there is a educated balance based on experience, largely, which is around what do you build for today versus what do you build for tomorrow. And that's obviously going to be linked to the scope of the MVP and the challenges, etc., and a whole other host of variables. And I think, in summary, however, around anticipating challenges, there is really no silver bullet. A lot of this comes down to experience, a smattering of luck, and then a really robust team that you get to work with. So I think those are the kind of the key areas that I think about when trying to anticipate challenges, especially when you're kind of pushing the boundaries of technology. So the last slide is really around how do you then get to MVP? So going back to that kind of cake mix, we've got all those ingredients, we've blended them, we've set the right ratios, temperatures, etc. But ultimately, it's all about getting to MVP, because that is what you're going to put out to the market. And again, you'll see a cake theme coming through here. Previous thinking around MVP was around going from a basic product, so literally a plain sponge, and then add some ice and some candles, and you end up with a nice fancy cake. The other way of thinking around how to build an MVP is to kind of take something that is small but covers all the different aspects of what you want for your customers. So the MVP should be, or your product should be delightful, it should be usable, it should definitely be valuable, and above all, it needs to be feasible. And then you kind of iterate and build on those things. So we've gone through weeks and weeks of design thinking. We've understood our market, both our current and target markets. We've identified our use case. We've baselined our scope, and then we've got a plan. And then it's through that we build and iterate and learn. And that's kind of the last piece in terms of this jigsaw that says, how do you then take that talent in that environment and put them together and give them the right direction, leadership, to be able to build out that MVP. And that MVP is ultimately what we're heading for. And it needs to be delightful. It needs to be usable, it needs to be valuable, and it needs to be feasible. And if we've done our job correctly, then we will have a great success when we launch. So that's it from me on those slides. I'm open for any questions. I'm just going to stop sharing. And I don't know if there is any questions because I can't see, but I don't know if there is anything, Gemma. No.
No, does anyone on have anything they'd like to ask? I can, if you pick your hand up, I can unmute you. No, I've got a couple of questions that have come through, Dan.
Okay.
One of them is, so where are you up to? How big's the cake at the minute?
The cake is in the oven at the moment. So we've got 2 squads in, well, nearly the second squad finally in, and we've done a whole heap of work on our proof of concept, and we're also starting to build out our baseline MVP. So we're on track for our product launch. We've solved some of the technical challenges. There's still going to be more to come. As I said, I've been around in technology for too long to not realize that. And we're doing some clever stuff with Unreal. So I can't go into too much detail, but it's all ticking along very nicely. So I'm very pleased with the results so far.
Then Sarah has her hand up, so I'll just unmute you.
Yeah, hi Dan. It was just a question around the remote working. And I know your focus is very much being a startup and having a team in the office. I just wondered how that was kind of working given the current scenario that we're in, where lots of people want to be working at home.
Yeah, it's a good question.
it's working really well. What I've found is that the people who want or are happy to come into the office and work and collaborate are actually the people that we want on our team, because it isn't just around technically what they can do. They very much want to be part of a team. They want to be back into a human to human interaction. They want to be able to collaborate and explore and innovate. What I found is where engineers are very rigid and say, I want to do 100% remote, they're also, in my opinion, not necessarily the best engineers, not necessarily the best team players. So it's kind of almost been a good filtration system to filter out the people perhaps who you wouldn't necessarily want in your team, who aren't going to excel, because and that's up to them. Obviously, they're happy to work remotely, but for us and where we're at in terms of startup, we need to have people who want to be part of this, and that if you want to be part of something, you need to, in my view, kind of be involved and be together with your team, and I think longer term we'll see. Obviously, levels of productivity are great. I think for established businesses, established processes, ways of working, mature technology. I think for startups and when you need to push the edge in terms of innovation, I think that'll be interesting to see longer term how that plays out.
So do you think it's a maybe impossible challenge for a tech startup that is looking to adopt a remote model?
It's feasible. I mean, I think is it GitHub did it. I think they're all remote and always have been. It's feasible to do, but I think it would be 10 times more difficult, 10 times more challenging to do everything remotely. And because for me, it's all about the relationships and how do you build the relationships. And ultimately, we're a social creature, and you can build those relationships kind of remotely, but you can go 10 times faster if you're building those relationships and building that technology, those platforms, solving those problems together. There's nothing like getting around a whiteboard, 2 or 3 of you, kind of working things through. We've already proven that where we've tried to run sessions remotely versus we'll just get in a room. What was taken a couple of weeks, we kind of kicked out in an afternoon in a physical environment. So I think for startups, it will be very interesting. So how do you continue to foster the innovation? And I can see where Google is coming from in terms of pushing hard to get people back into the office. That whole company is built on being disruptive and innovating their various technologies and products, and it'll be interesting to see if they will suffer longer term if they can't get people back into the office to collaborate and innovate together in a physical world versus 100% virtual.
Thanks for the answer.
Just not from me this one, Dan. So I'm keen to understand a bit more about the balance between kicking something off fast versus kind of carefully planning. And I guess slightly loaded in that we started talking about putting a team together really quickly, which is I suppose one of the reasons that people come to us. Where was your thinking with that, and what was the
we're using the Fruition consultants to build that initial squad. We can start to test our ideas and our technical hypothesis very quickly, low risk, right? We're not making significant investments, but that was one of the first things, is kind of how do you get that off the ground very, very quickly, just to kind of test the water, so to speak, test those ideas. Going back to that MVK, is it feasible? That's is crucial. But then certainly wanting to build a longer term permanent team and an infrastructure that then supports that, and that's really, really important, because it comes ultimately down to ownership, and for people taking pride in what they do, and that ultimately directly translates into good software product. So that is that balance. Can you hit the ground running with some kind of interim resource, some expertise to kind of prove some stuff out quickly, and then move forward to a permanent cadence. And then we've got the option where if we need to flex, or if we need to kind of spike up because we've got additional demands, then we can do that. But that was kind of the thinking, that balance between a rapid start, but ultimately wanted to cover with permanent people pretty quickly.
Cool. Okay, before we wrap up then, does anyone have anything they'd like to ask before we draw it to a close? Pause. Okay, great. In which case, thanks very much to Dan for giving us the insight into GDS, and thank you to everyone that has attended this morning. If you do have anything that you'd like to learn more about in terms of either GDS or Fruition Consulting, then please do reach out, and we'll drop everyone a note that has joined today with our details. Thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of Leeds Digital Festival and have a lovely day. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Cheers. Thank you.